Hey everybody, welcome to Vespers. We are so glad that you have joined us again this evening so that we can be together. Now we begin like we begin every evening, lighting this candle and celebrating the presence of Christ, who is in us, among us, and beyond us. And remembering that even though we are distanced, we're not alone. Thanks so much for being here this evening for another chance to be together and to get to hear from folks in our congregation. On Monday, we had a writer's workshop, which we hadn't had for quite a while since the pandemic started, and it was kind of hard to get things going. And finally, we got back together, and it was beautiful. So many of the wonderful things that happen when you're in a room together writing. There's just a beautiful spirit that happens there, and I think it happened again, even over Zoom, which is pretty amazing. We often write on a prompt, and then we'll share some of what we've written if folks want to. There's never any pressure to. But it really is amazing, the variety of responses that we find from the same prompt. We this week finished the sentence, "It's time for me too." And some folks felt like it was time to pause. Other folks felt like it was time to start moving. Some to take care of to-do lists, and some to do whatever, lots of other things. But no matter what we found that we felt like we needed to do, everyone sought to pay attention to those foundational and life-giving things in life, and everybody was thinking about how they can be part of this work of love. So it's pretty amazing, I think, what happens whenever we take time to be honest. Our answers may sound different, our ideas may sound different. We'll find some great diversity, and yet we can find this beautiful unity as we all work together in our own ways to discover the way of love and the way of compassion in our lives. So I'm grateful to be part of this congregation that does that. And tonight we get to talk with Gerard Howell. Gerard was the pastor of Central from 1989 to 2004. After that, he worked as a chaplain for a while. He and Jane have 2 grown children, 5 grandchildren, and they have a new dog named Gigi. I don't think we get to meet Gigi tonight, but I'm sure you'll have a chance and an opportunity to meet Gigi at a later time. Gerard and I really got to talking and had a great time. I had to cut out a few parts of it, but we get to hear some stories from Gerard. This year, we're trying to talk with some folks more about their avocations, some other things that they've been doing as well. There's such a wealth of talent, a wealth of different interests and abilities in our congregation, so this is a great chance for us to find out about that. Gerard has joined in our writers' workshop at Central, but he's also been in another writers group that has met for a long time, and he's been writing for a while. He writes some wonderful stories, oftentimes beginning as personal narratives and then finding their way sometimes in surprising fictions and sometimes even histories as he interweaves those things together. So tonight we're going to get to hear a couple of stories and talk with Gerard about his writing. So let's go talk with Gerard. Hey Gerard, how are you doing?
Hey, doing great.
It's so good
to see you.
It's good to see you too. It's so.
I
know. Well, so tell us a little bit. How have you been doing? What have you been getting into lately in the midst of this pandemic life?
You know, when the pandemic started, I was just kind of ready to just go to about August or something, and then all this whole thing would be over. And now I'm realizing that we may be just barely halfway through what we're going to have to go through. So, and now the days just seem to be tumbling on top of each other. But I am about zoomed out. I'm taking 4 classes on Coursera. I'm doing a Bible class right now. And with Myers Parks Baptist Church, I'm doing a Zoom on what it means to be white, and we're reading only black authors as we look at that, which I found to be very interesting. It's a small group of about 7 of us. Myers Parks Baptist Church is in Charlotte, North Carolina, and my brother put me on that group. And I'm going to be joining your group tonight, and I've got a writing group. Plus our coffee gang gets together and just shoot the bull. And I do a men's Bible study with Episcopal Church in Florida that we attend when I'm down there in February. So those are kind of the things that are going on. I'm about zoomed out. Oh, and about Sunday school, of course. Right now I'm teaching Sunday school. So it's... I'm actually committed myself to too much stuff at this point.
Well, thanks for committing to this too. And speaking of that, I've got a couple other Zoom meetings. No, I'm just kidding. But it is strange. I never would have thought that we would have ended up thinking about this, doing so much online, so many online meetings and connections, and it's hard to keep all that straight sometimes, isn't it? One of the things that I've really enjoyed that we get to do, Gerard, is as we've done writers workshop, and you've come, and it's been so fun to get to write together and to get to hear some of the things that you've written. And I'd love for you to read some stuff for us. So, do you have something that you'd like to read for us?
Yeah, I'm going to read one here called "Mother's Purse." And I don't write because I'm good at it. I write because I enjoy doing it. But this one you'll recognize without me realizing it. I had drawn from Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music. So a lot of times things in your past fall into what you're writing without you realizing it. Mother had 2 purses. The Sunday purse was a small, snap-enclosed patent leather purse with a handle. On Sundays and dress occasions, it was looped over her arms. I never saw it opened. The utilitarian purse was a large, frumpy, and brownish-colored purse that hung over her shoulder as part of her daily attire. No thought was given to the shoes or color of the dress she was wearing. From the utilitarian purse came whatever was necessary for the event. A cut finger brought out an appropriate size bandage, a headache produced an aspirin, and a sneeze Kleenex. Never was there any better evidence of the utilitarian value than a family trip in a car from Pontotoc, Mississippi to Birmingham, Alabama to visit my mother's parents. On such a trip, years later, my father would proclaim to my brother Stan, "Do you realize this is the first trip I've made without car trouble?" Not so on this trip. We traveled 60 miles just beyond any known semblance of town into a sparsely settled lower Appalachian hills when the car motor sputtered and died. Dad coasted the car off the highway onto a level spot. Hood up, trunk open, 4 doors open wide, and Dad hovering over the motor was a familiar scene. Dad came to Mom's side. "It looks like a carburetor," Dad said. "I don't know what I can do." Mom opened her purse and retrieved a box. Will a refurbished carburetor do? Sweetie, how wonderful you are, exclaimed Dad. This is just what I need. It will take a while. Out of the car, commands Bob, and she leads us to a safe place off the road. Don and Stan, I need your assistance, said Dad. The children became restless, and immediately Mother opened her purse, and out came a trombone for Conrad, a guitar for Byron, and with my assistance, we pulled out the upright Baldwin piano and the bench for Gwen. Mom rummaged through the purse and retrieved music for each of us and a baton for herself. And on the side of the road in rural Mississippi, the hills were alive with the sound of music, and the mechanic entertained as they labored. First, they played Bach Ode to Joy, and it was followed by Mother's favorite, Amazing Grace. One tune after another they played, and then one of Mom's generation's favorite, Analara, which for our generation was Love Me Tender, that Elvis Presley had made to the top 40 on the charts. Maybe that's why Gwen took over with a rhythmic rendition of Joshua It's a Battle of Jericho with an undercurrent theme of Mission Impossible. Immediately, Conrad supported her with her trombone. Byron began picking instead of strumming, and each instrument had their improvised moment. Mom then laid down the baton and began to sway with the rhythm. It reached a crescendo with all the instruments and people in full voice. And then silence. Quietly, the humming of the car engine broke the silence. Cheers, we shouted and ran for the car. Mother collected the instruments, the music, her baton, and replaced them in her purse. And as the car re-entered the Highway 78, all the children sing, "Merrily we roll along, roll along." Tiring of the redundant tune, Mother reached into her purse and distributed a sandwich and a cold Coke to each person. The fed children fell asleep. "Is there anything you don't have in that purse?" asked Dad. "Oh, yes," she said, and slid across the seat to the driver's side, planted a kiss on Dad's cheek, and snuggled up to him. "Oh, yes." Dad smiled. Darkness settled in. The car motor hummed, and quietly they rolled along to Birmingham. That's a good story.
That was awesome. That was so great. I love that story so much, Gerard. Oh my goodness.
It's sort of true-ish. You know, the car on the side would certainly be the case, and the open doors and the open hood and all of that is very true. One of my sisters replied, said, "This reminds me of Richard Peck's writing, too silly not to bring a smile, laugh, yet with a layer of contemplation that lies beneath."
Yeah, it really does. It's really like you had me. You had me almost with the carburetor. Like the carburetor at the beginning, you're like, did she have a carburetor? I mean, of course not. But there's a little like, maybe she actually had a carburetor. But then by the time the piano comes out, before that, but you know that you're not quite in reality. It's beautiful. I love that. Where did that transition into that kind of, is this magical realism? Where did that come from?
I cannot remember how I got started on that. I do recall that I don't really think Mother had the snap purse, and she didn't. I don't remember Mother carrying a bag around with her, but I'm sure most women did. I just don't recall it. But in my mind, I remember a time in which we were walking and thought, this is kind of strange. Why are we walking to church? Everybody else is driving to church. But Dad had the car, and he was preaching elsewhere, and so we went to church. We always had to walk, and But I can just recall Mother always, as most mothers tend to do, seem to have what the children need. And I just kind of started with that. The carburetor was the one I loved, and I laughed when that came out. And then the rest of it was pretty easy once you have a carburetor,
But it still goes in really unexpected places for me. Like you're pulling out instruments, but it's orchestral at first almost, and then you move from interesting classical pieces of music to these interesting combinations of things. Was it a Mission Impossible theme under Joshua Fought the Battle of Jericho? Was that?
Yeah, I had a friend who wrote a music with that beneath it, and that may have been another one. And it's out of date. Those don't fit because I'm talking about Love Me Tender, and then Mission Impossible came a little bit later than that. But it just. My sister couldn't play the piano that well, but it was just fun to describe it so she could read my description of her. I send all these to my family every time I write one. I usually get a response on it. Did one on comfort food one time, and I was talking about peanut butter, and it was amazing how many responses I had on the peanut butter. Had a guy out at work. He said, "What are you eating?" And I said, "A peanut butter and banana sandwich." He said, "You must have been born in Tupelo." And my jaw drops. And I said, "Well, yeah, I was." I said, "How did you know?" He said, "Oh, well, Elvis Presley liked peanut butter and banana sandwiches." I said, "I was born on the same day that he was born." So a whole story started with that one. And every Sunday afternoon, I eat my peanut butter banana sandwich. And when I sat down, I see myself as sitting down in the room with the king.
Oh, that is awesome! I love that so much. What got you into writing, Gerard? I know, I
was glad you asked that question, because I had to think about that one a bit. I always kind of wanted to, and there have been periods of time when I've kept diaries, but I think where I really decided to commit myself to it was probably 20 years ago, and maybe 15, somewhere in there. I decided one day, it was after reading a book by Pharrell Sams called Recollections, and I thought, I could do that. I'll create a chapter, and each chapter will have one word as a title, and whatever's in there, that's what I'll write about. And and these were just recollections of growing up. Like I put games, and every Monday I told my brothers and sisters and my cousins, every Monday I'm going to send out something. I want you to edit it. I want you to add your part to the story. And then I'll put these together. And so I came up with 34 chapters, and I probably got 8 or 9 into it, barns, outhouses, cow pasture, just memories that we might, just some of them really silly and some of them not so. Cars was another one, because in my generation that was important. And then I would send out the story and what I could write about it, and they would send back all sorts of stories. And so I put those in somehow, or I just made an addendum with who wrote what, and then put them all together and then sent them back out for people to read. And I did that until it was my time to do the family reunion we have every 3 years. I'm from a family of 11, so it has to be well planned. And I never got back at it again. So
that's a great project, though. Yeah.
That was a good idea.
Yeah.
It was a good idea when you got 11 or 9 brothers and sisters. My older brother's deceased, but
yeah.
So but what I discovered is I was only in the family for 17 years, so a lot of the stuff I want to write a good half of the family knows nothing about that period of time. But the other reason I wanted to write it is because I thought about all those questions I did not ask my dad. I wish I had them.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to answer some of those questions for my kids.
Well, that's a great idea, and that's a wonderful thing. Especially ways even now that folks can stay connected and discover a little more about those. It's amazing when you get to talking even to family members what kinds of stories will pop up in the midst of your conversation, and after years you'll be like, I didn't know that. How did this happen? Yeah.
And then if you got more than one family member, they all saw that same event differently.
Yeah.
And all of them may be right in some way, And one other thing we did once my Jane got it, and I really cherish this, Mom and Dad, who I didn't get to see very often because of the number of the kids we had, came up and we got to start telling stories. And so Jane just set a tape recorder out in front. We went 3 hours telling stories. And I still sometimes will go to bed at night and listen because I'm hearing Mom's voice and Dad's voice. And on there's a spot where Mother just laughs. She tells a story about when I fell out of the car. I'd sort of started the story, and she said, she says, you don't remember because you were only 3 years old. But of course, he was in a Model A, and so he was really slow coming to a stop. And she said, by the time I opened the door, you were running and said, bait for me, bait for me.
Oh, that's awesome. So does most of your inspiration then for the things you write come from, it sounds like it's inspired a lot by family. Is that where most of it comes from?
I noticed that most of them are, and that's what I want most of them to be.
Well, what else do you have to read, Gerard? Do you have something else you'd like to share?
Well, yeah, and this is a little bit different. This is trying to put history, connect my life with history. Anyway, it's called The Postman. And there's a movie that's titled to that. I can't think of the guy's name that played it. But in the movie, there is it's a dystopia story, and the guy who plays, he just happened to be dressed as a postman, and he finds a post bag, and he comes to this walled-in city and said he's a postman. So they opened the door for him because he has letters, But they said, "You're God sent, a savior," and he said, "No, I'm just a postman." So the dialogue from the movie The Postman gives hope to survivors dwelling in a dystopia United States created by a major global war. Thanks to The Postman, people began to believe in a restored government. For 2 years, I joined the Postal Order, not as a federal employee, but as on a work scholarship that paid for all of my expenses except books and supplies at Etowamba Junior College, Fulton, Mississippi. Stan and Byron brothers served in succession, skipping 2 years because Don, my brother, had a football scholarship. I picked up the student mail at the dean's office, distributed the mail into the student's post office box, held office hours to sell stamps, and receive mail. There was no computer, no email, Twitter, or anything else that might be added before this reading is written. Telephone calls made in the hallway were long distance. Everyone used the post office. In some fashion, I knew all the students on the campus, and they knew me. The cost of the stamp increased to 5 cents my second year. Outrageous, I thought. That's the cost of a candy bar. There's a definite pattern of mail the freshman's first year. A new setting, new people, open doors to new choices for dating. The lovers who sang "I will always love you" to the steady back home found another possibility to love always. Letters came daily, came less frequently, and and incoming and outgoing mail envelopes to a Dear John. It developed into a Dear John. These brought tears, incited anger, and a sigh of relief. Perhaps this is my first practice in pastoral care. The letters home were less frequent as the students acclimated themselves. However, there was always the expected school payments and spending money. The females came in as a group, the males normally alone. Until I saw the two-star movie, The Postman, I had not contemplated the significance of my task, particularly in the in the greater scheme of human and male history. Everything we do is raised on the foundation of those who precede us. The postman, mailman, or mail carrier marked a significant move in the development of government whereby a dependable communication is afforded to the masses. Dare I associate myself with Benjamin Franklin, who was the first postmaster appointed by the Continental Congress, rule-free delivery for my granddad Howell's generation, generally adopted in 1902, assured mail delivery to remote homesteads rather than requiring them to pick up the mail in some distant city whenever they or a neighbor traveled in that direction. For information only, Allensville, Todd County, was the first RFD in Kentucky, and my native state, Mississippi, Hickory in Newton County. The rural mail carrier who delivered and received mail also carried the word of the local news of distant neighbors, birth, marriages, illnesses, and death. They were a welcome intrusion into the quiet rural day, often greeted at the mailbox. To a lesser degree in town, the friendly walking mail carrier performed the same task. Miss Josie, the postmistress at the small post office in Waddy, Kentucky during my seminary days, was well informed on the local news, however, not the best nor careful communicator of her information. "You got a postcard from Jane's sister in Florida. I guess they're on vacation," she would say. "It looks like they're having a good time." Now, virtually everyone in the community was related, so usually she was talking to family. After that, I only sent letters in envelopes. In the history of mail, no period is more intriguing to me than the critical period of 1860 with the war between the states brewing, when communication between the East and the West was vital. The North and the South were vying for loyalty of the newly added California. The telephone and the railroad ended at St. Joseph, Missouri. The current mail system required a steamship to the Isthmus of Panama across the land to the Pacific Ocean and northward on boat. Can the time be cut in half? Enter the Pony Express, a privately created system initiated by the imagination investment of William Russell, Alexander Major, and William Waddell. These three men assembled 120 riders, 190 stations, 400 horses, and 400 support personnel to cover the northern route from St. Joseph to Sacramento, approximately 1,900 miles. The potential war necessitated the roughest, less weather dependable route. This route went through Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, and into Sacramento, California. The letters initially cost $5 per half ounce. Each rider rode about 75 miles each way, with a fresh horse provided every 12 to 15 miles. They faced potential robbery, Indian attacks, terrain and weather, heat, cold, rain, sleet, and snow. Morgans and the Thoroughbred were the primary breeds. Mustangs were chosen for the rough terrain. Johnny Fry and Kelly Nickerson were the first writers. The best record was delivering Lincoln's first inaugural speech across the continent in 7 days and 17 hours. The holder of the long-distance record of 323 miles nonstop was William Cody, better known as Buffalo Bill. This ride was made over difficult terrain and extended because a rider was killed, and it took him 21 hours and 40 minutes and 21 horses. The mail must go through. They never lost mail. The Pony Express operated for 19 months, April the 13th, 1860 to October 1861. The telegraph doomed it. The experiment was a financial bust, grossing $90,000 but losing $200,000. However, this was a critical gap in the U.S. communication history. Letter of my post office days from home and lovers still exist in somebody's place for keepsakes. The penmanship, address, stamps, and paper carry more than just information. These letters from significant persons tell of their daily lives. Within them is a written history of love, pain, joy, and celebrations of achievements, honest communication that email and texting and Facebook or phone cannot bear or preserve. They can be held and read again and again. Magically, they take us back into the world. Letters are a treasure cove. Where would David McCullen, author of the biography of John Adams, be without the letters of John Adams and John and Abigail Adams, that letters they wrote to each other? The letters tell of their love for each other, their concerns about their children and the farm, their interest in affairs of state, and Abigail's successful initiation to renew a fractured friendship between John and Thomas Jefferson. For 2 years of my college career, I can say I was just a postman.
Oh, that's great, Gerard. It took some. Well, it took some really interesting turns there too. I love the historical connections and in that and how that. It makes sense too that because I guess the whole point of the mail is it feels like you're talking about the intimacy that kind of happens between people and these important connections that are made, and so you're also making that about these important connections in your life too. I love how you're talking about that and you're also showing it happen too.
Yeah, I did something like that similar. Well, not on me. I got interested in global warming and thought, I'll write something about that. But by the time I got through, I wrote Santa Claus is moving, and I had Santa because of the problems at the North Pole. He was having to figure out where he was going to move to, so I had him moving to the South Pole just as an interim, and then maybe to Mars, because nothing really matters about distance. And the moon interim, and then maybe to Mars. To Mars when all the people move to Mars. But all of that has to wait on St. Nicholas to find a woman who's willing to move to all of those places. But it started off with global warming, and then I just kind of moved. Hey, it makes more sense to me to talk about why is Santa moving. But I pulled in the global warming stuff with it.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Well, if you can make things fun and interesting, that makes such a difference. To be able to learn that, to learn some important facts, and at the same time, the facts, I guess it seems more and more, hold a lot less. And maybe this isn't more and more, but the facts don't hold the same sway that I would like to think they do. It really has to do with our emotions that are tied up with those things that seem to hold sway in our lives.
One of the things that I did that I really enjoyed, and I haven't done enough of this just on character. I'd love to do more writing and describing characters and just create some characters. But one day I thought about having 10 brothers and sisters. It would be kind of fun if I put each one of them in the same situation and see how they would deal with it. And so I had us on a top of the mountain with an avalanche coming, and we had to figure out how to get down, and every one of them have a different way of doing it. So it was kind of fun.
Well, Gerard, I really appreciate you taking time out to share with us. It's really been a joy to get to hear some of your writing and to get to talk with you. It's so good to see you, and so glad folks over there that Jane and the rest of the family is doing good, and we hope that you and Gigi will get along.
Oh, I can survive with not being the primary person there. I want to say I really appreciate what you do. I did email this to you, I think Sunday, but I am so glad you're part of this church. So often I think back about I'm saying this from a technological view right at this moment. I can say that about Charles and Mark and Riley, but I was talking to Riley recently. I said, Riley, can you imagine if you and I had to do this? What's going on right now in church? They were just getting email in by the time I got ready to leave. So it's another world, but I really appreciate that you've got those skills. And of course, Charles and all the others and Mark's and his preaching, but thank you so much. I don't know what our church would do if we didn't have the combination of people that we have right now.
Well, I'm just glad to be part of this, a great staff to work with, and a great church community of people who, man, people have just jumped in and taken to this. I was concerned at the beginning, how are we going to do this? And you know what? People have just jumped right in, and they're texting and chatting with each other online, and that just makes it, that's where I feel like that's really where our worship and our services are really happening, in the chat, and that's where even more so now. I was thinking on Sunday how beautiful it is for people to be able to maybe get a glimpse at some of these conversations that they might not have been able to hear. Folks just caring for each other and just saying, hey, how are you doing? I'm so glad to hear you're doing okay. Yeah, it's beautiful stuff.
That was particularly true Sunday. There were several sharings, a pretty intimate sharing, really, about. And I did appreciate that very much.
Yeah, speaks a lot of our great congregation and folks who are just willing to just share and care for each other. So thank you, Gerard, and thank you for all that you do and for sharing with us today. It was so great getting to talk.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we will see you later, you two, and tell Jane and Gigi we said hi.
All right. Okay. See you guys.
See ya. Bye. Thanks again so much, Gerard, for taking time out to share with us, with us some of your beautiful work, these amazing stories that you've written. It really is a joy to get to hear those, to be reminded how our histories intertwine with one another. And it's given me some hope that maybe we can try some of this with our family too, to share some stories, find out some things that we didn't know before as well. So I think that is something that we can even try now during this time of pandemic together. Well, as we take a few minutes to sing a song and to reflect, we also want to say today how our hearts are saddened with the passing of our dear friend Connie Enlow, and we offer our prayers and our hearts go out to Connie's family and to all her friends as well. Such a dear soul, and we will have more information about arrangements for Connie, and you can find those and look for those in our newsletter tomorrow. We'll get the most updated information out to you all then. But tonight, why don't we sing a song together? He Leadeth Me. He leadeth me. O blessed thought, O words with heavenly comfort fraught. Whate'er I do, where'er I be, still 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me by his own hand. He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me. Sometimes mid scenes of deepest gloom, sometimes where Eden's bowers bloom, by water still or troubled sea, still 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me by his own hand. He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me. For by his hand he leadeth me. Amen. I am grateful that no matter what we must walk through, that I get to walk through these times with folks like you all, with this beautiful family of faith, with folks that I know who care and who are always working to find the way of love, the way of compassion, the way of peace. So thank you for continuing to be that family of faith together. And thanks, Gerard, for taking time out tonight to share with us. It really was great to get to talk with you again. Next week, we're going to kind of continue this theme of talking with people about some of their talents that and things that they do. And we're going to talk with Kim Kincaid next week and see some of her amazing creations. I'm always in awe of her work and what she does. So we'll do that next week. And then the week after that will be Ash Wednesday. So we will try our hand at a virtual Ash Wednesday service next week. So we hope that, or the week after next, whenever Ash Wednesday is, we'll do it then. And we hope that you can join us then for that. Also, don't forget this week, Baby Boomers is meeting tomorrow. We've got Sunday school classes that are meeting on Thursday, Saturday, during the weekend, and on Sunday as well. If you'd like to find out more about that, you can go to our website and find out the links for all those Zoom groups that are meeting there. And we hope that we'll see you again on Sunday as we meet for worship. And for now, go in peace.